Johar everyone. So welcome back. I'll start by sharing one of my experience. So once I had been to my field work and I was interacting with my indigenous elders, and I asked him how is everyone at village and how's are things going on. He said it's going on well, but we have been protesting and we have been resisting. So I was like, what happened? Why are you resisting and protesting? So then he said that there was a plantation drive in our village, and we have been protesting and resisting for that. And I was like, so what's the problem of the plantation drives? He said they had brought fruit trees. They had brought mango trees, jackfruit trees, and that's why we were protesting. I said, fruit trees, mango trees, jackfruit trees, and still protesting. So then I asked, what's the reason why you're protesting when it's a fruit trees? And then he said that if they plant mango trees, jackfruit trees in the periphery of our village, then wild animals and wild boars will come to eat those fruits, and then they will destroy our agriculture crops, which is just near our periphery of our village. And I was taken aback. And that was a huge learning for me, is that when we are making policies for the people on ground, they need to be part of the policy making process. They need to be part of the decision making process, because they are the ones who are well aware and knowledgeable that which ecosystem is beneficial for them and which trees are beneficial for them and not. And then he said, we want sal trees in our periphery, and we would be really supportive if sal tree is planted in the periphery of our village. This is an example of one region, and this can be in a different context in different region. The learning which I got from this interaction is that indigenous people, local communities, Adivasi communities, and people on ground need to be part of the decision making process, need to be in the front lines, because they are aware and have knowledge and wisdom since years. The second thing I would like to share, that when we are talking about climate action, it's really important to also understand the worldview of indigenous people, Adivasi communities, forest dwelling communities. As per the reports, 80% of the world's biodiversity are protected by indigenous people, who are less than 5% of the world population. Me, coming from an Adivasi community, in our worldview, we are not mere nature, but we are nature. Nature is a source of identity, culture, tradition, and language, unlike other community who see nature as a commercial commodity. So it's really important that we acknowledge and respect the worldview of indigenous people, Adivasi communities, local communities, and forest dwelling communities. And at the same point, it's also really important to respect and support the traditional way of living. And third, it's really important to understand and support their traditional knowledge and practices. Like, uh, if we talk about our way of living, like whether it is starting from brushing our teeth, like in our village, it's called datun. We brush our teeth. My grandparents and elders used to brush our teeth from datuns. And then going ahead, like the brooms which we have been using, I remember my grandfathers and uncle used to use water bottles from pumpkins and bottle guards, because they were having cylindrical shape. The inner was used as vegetables, and the out crust was dried and used as water bottles. And even now, our communities use leaf plates for having food. So they make leaf cutleries. They plug the leaves in a sustainable way and make leaf cutleries, which can be alternatives to leaf plates. So there has been numerous way of living and practices in the indigenous communities and local communities. Now the question arises, how can we support these communities? Because when we are facing impacts of climate crisis, when we are in this developmental worldview, like I would like to give an example. When we were during COVID, there was lockdown and there was restriction. And during COVID, we also had cyclones, uh, at that point of time. So for the indigenous people, it was a major critical loss, because that was their season, which is the major source of income for them, which is the minor forest produce, and which not only led to the loss of livelihood but also pushed them for a vicious circle of death. And now, as we have seen, we are having unseasonal rainfalls and cyclones every year, impacting their major source of income, is also leading to migration, displacement, and it's also leading to this loss of traditional knowledge and practices and also identity. And this is a vicious circle. And that's why it's really critical to see climate action in a holistic process, which also brings down to us that how migration and displacement can also be addressed. It's really important and critical to recognize the rights of indigenous people over the land, forest, and territories. And at the end, I would like to sum up and say that the good practices which the communities have been engaging in terms of the traditional knowledge, how they have been going in terms of patrolling the forest, protecting the forest from the outsiders. There's one of the practices which is practiced in Odisha in Niger district. I'll just quickly say it's called Thenga Pali. Thenga means stick, Pali means turn. So women of those village have been patrolling the forest every morning. They get up, take their stick, and then take the patrolling of the forest and come back after patrolling and keep the stick in front of the next household. So in that way, the stick is rotating, and the responsibility of taking forest is also rotating in the village. But the question is, how much burden are we giving into women? Why are those women taking care of those forest? The women are taking care of the forest because they truly believe the forest to be part of themselves. What is the least thing which we can do is it's recognize their rights and support their traditional knowledge and practices. It's also really important to understand that climate change and climate crisis is a gendered issue. Women and girls are differently impacted with them. Even when there is cyclone, droughts, and unseasonal rainfall, women have to bear the responsibility and burden of taking care of the family, and also uh, uh, bring health care to the family. So I want to emphasize and say that we all can contribute towards climate action. All we need is the desire and take action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.